Close your eyes and picture this awakening without a single digital device. No glowing screen demanding your attention. No calendar notifications pinging in your consciousness. No rush hour traffic building outside. No urgent messages waiting for replies. No conference call scheduled for the morning. Instead, consciousness returns slowly as pale dawn light seeps into a sheltered overhang of rock. The temperature is sharp and clean, filled with the fragrance of smoldering wood and damp soil. Close by, you detect the gentle sounds of voices as your companions begin their day. An infant whimpers momentarily before going quiet. Someone chuckles softly. Beyond your shelter, birds exchange calls in the strengthening daylight. This was the human morning for countless generations. This was dawn. We don't retell history, we expose it. If you think history is boring, this channel will change your mind forever. Subscribe to uncover what textbooks skipped. We're approximately 35,000 years in the past, give or take several thousand years. You are Homo sapiens, living in what would eventually be known as Europe, Africa, or Asia. Physically, you're indistinguishable from people today, identical cranial capacity, matching skeletal structure, equivalent abilities for communication, reasoning, and feeling emotion. Yet your existence, your everyday experience, differs so drastically from modern life that comprehending it requires genuine effort. So the fascinating puzzle that captivates researchers is this: how did you actually fill your waking hours? We carry this mental picture from numerous films and educational programs. Primitive cave dwellers, unkempt and crude, perpetually fleeing from dangerous predators, dedicating every conscious minute desperately seeking sustenance, perpetually teetering on the edge of famine, experiencing lives that were harsh, primitive, and brief, pure survival mode. That's the common narrative, correct? Ancient existence as an unending ordeal of suffering and fear. Except the reality is dramatically different. The physical evidence reveals a surprisingly different narrative. Ancient humans weren't merely enduring existence. They were genuinely living. They maintained complex interpersonal relationships, enjoyed substantial free time, created art, produced music, developed spiritual practices, shared humor. They exchanged tales beside fires. They adorned their physical forms. They fashioned detailed sculptures and created stunning imagery on subterranean walls. They provided care for aging and injured members. They conducted elaborate burial ceremonies with meaningful objects. They possessed culture, intricate and advanced culture that modern researchers are only beginning to comprehend properly. But let's not rush ahead. Before discussing underground artworks and ceremonial interments, we must grasp the fundamentals. What did an ordinary day genuinely entail? How did our forebears allocate their hours when employment commutes didn't exist, financial obligations were unknown, and food markets were unimaginable? When survival carried an entirely different significance than it holds today. The reality might astonish you. Ancient humans likely labored fewer hours than contemporary people. Research into present-day foraging communities, which provide our clearest glimpse into ancient lifestyles, demonstrates that individuals generally invested merely 4 to 6 hours daily on survival necessities, locating food, hunting game, cooking meals, crafting implements, and maintaining dwellings. That's the extent of it. The remaining hours belong to leisure. Interpersonal connection, recreational activities, artistic expression, narrative sharing, simple relaxation. This contradicts everything conventional wisdom teaches about human progress. We envision our ancestors as desperately impoverished in both time and resources while we enjoy abundance and comfort. Yet regarding discretionary time, the reverse may be accurate. An ancient human likely enjoyed more unscheduled hours weekly than most contemporary individuals experience monthly. The deeper we investigate ancient existence, the richer and more layered the understanding becomes. Certainly, dangers existed. Physical injuries occurred frequently and proved serious. Childhood mortality rates were elevated. Bacterial infections that modern medicine treats easily could prove fatal. Average lifespan was reduced compared to today, though perhaps not as drastically as you'd assume. Surviving early childhood meant reasonable odds of reaching your 50s or 60s. Some individuals lived considerably longer. But here's the crucial point. Within those years, people experienced complete lives. They experienced joy, formed deep bonds, grieved losses, produced beauty, faced challenges, marked achievements. They weren't simply biological organisms programmed for survival. They were fully human in every meaningful sense, possessing identical fundamental requirements we recognize today. Sustenance and protection certainly, but equally important. Social connection, purpose, beauty, and play. Let's discuss the morning meal. Though your ancestors 35,000 years past didn't possess breakfast as we conceive it. They didn't rise at 7 o'clock, shuffle toward the cooking area, and prepare a standardized morning meal. Structured mealtimes simply didn't exist. Not truly. They consumed food when provisions were available, when hunger became insistent, when opportunity arose. This might sound chaotic to modern sensibilities, but it functioned perfectly within their reality. Imagine yourself awakening in that stone shelter as initial sunlight penetrates the entrance. Your stomach rumbles with hunger, so naturally you eat. Remarkably simple. What you're consuming depends entirely on current availability. Perhaps remnants of venison from several days prior when hunting parties successfully tracked down a large deer. It's been suspended in the shelter's cooler depths, away from direct sunshine, wrapped in the animal's own hide. The cold seasonal air has prevented spoilage, although it's beginning to develop that slightly aged aroma indicating you should probably consume it today. You tear away a strip and chew methodically. It requires serious jaw effort but provides protein and fat, precisely what your physiology needs after nighttime fasting. Your dental structure is robust, your jaw muscles powerful. Scientific analysis of ancient skeletal remains reveals significant wear patterns, clear evidence of lifetime spent processing difficult foods. Yet these same teeth reveal something else. Microscopic plant residues, starch particles from underground tubers, mineral deposits from seeds and various nuts. Your ancestors weren't exclusively carnivorous. They consumed everything available. Near the meat sits a wooden container, essentially curved bark sealed with sticky pine resin, filled with hazelnuts collected several days earlier. You crack several between your rear molars using the technique transmitted through generations. Young children observe adults performing this from infancy, absorbing the precise angle and pressure required to fracture the shell without pulverizing the edible portion inside. Adjacent to the nuts, there's a leather pouch containing preserved berries, blackberries gathered during late summer plenty and sun-dried. They're wrinkled currently, concentrated sweetness, and you consume several handfuls. The natural sugars enter your system quickly, supplying immediate energy. But the genuine prize is the collection of roots positioned near the fire. Someone, likely one of the experienced elder women with decades of plant expertise, excavated these yesterday from the riverbank. Their cattail roots, starchy and nourishing, yet essentially inedible without processing. So they've been positioned near the flames, not directly in them, just proximate enough that gradual heat slowly breaks down rigid fibers and transforms complex starches into digestible sugars. This represents cooking, though nothing like contemporary methods. No written recipes, no exact temperatures, no timing devices. Just accumulated knowledge spanning thousands of generations regarding what thermal energy accomplishes with different foods. The roots have been positioned there throughout the night, slowly roasting in residual warmth from the perpetually maintained fire. By morning, they've softened sufficiently for consumption, sweetened adequately for enjoyment. You extract one carefully, avoiding burns. It's hot yet manageable. You strip away the exterior layer and bite into the interior. It's not delicious by modern standards, yet it's satisfying and crucially, it's safe. Uncooked, these roots contain compounds that would cause severe digestive distress. Properly cooked, they're perfectly edible. This transformation, rendering inedible plants into sustenance through fire, ranks among humanity's most significant technological advances. It effectively multiplied the plant species your ancestors could consume. Underground tubers that were toxic raw became dietary staples when roasted. Seeds that would transit the digestive system unchanged became valuable nutrition when ground and heated. Nobody's consuming food in isolation. That almost never occurs. Food represents social activity, distributed according to intricate rules that everyone comprehends instinctively. The hunter who secured yesterday's kill isn't consuming more than others. Actually, he might consume less because that's how the system functions. Secure an animal, distribute it throughout the group, and when another person makes a kill, they'll reciprocate with you. This constitutes insurance, risk distribution, the social adhesive maintaining group cohesion. By midday, the camp resonates with sounds that would be instantly familiar to any craftsperson throughout history. The measured tap-tap-tap of stone striking stone. Not loud, not violent, just persistent, intentional. The sound of someone creating something that didn't previously exist. Your aunt sits on a smooth rock near the central fire, a hammerstone in one hand and a piece of flint in the other. Every few moments she strikes the flint at exactly the correct angle, sending a small flake spinning off into the dust. This isn't occasional work. This is daily maintenance, as essential as eating or sleeping, because tools didn't last indefinitely. That spear point used yesterday might have chipped when it struck bone. The scraper someone used to process hide last week, its edge is dulled now, nearly useless. In a world without metal, without manufacturing, without the ability to simply purchase replacements, you made your tools or you didn't survive. But here's what's remarkable. Stone tool creation, what archaeologists call napping, wasn't something you simply figured out one afternoon. It was a skill requiring years to master, demanding an understanding of stone properties that bordered on intimate knowledge. Different rocks fractured in different ways. Flint was predictable. Obsidian was sharp but brittle. Chert was reliable but harder to work. You had to know where to find good stone, how to test it, how to recognize quality before investing hours of work. Observe your aunt working and you'd witness expertise that took a lifetime to acquire. She isn't just striking rocks together randomly. She's reading the stone, perceiving lines of potential fracture invisible to untrained eyes. Each strike is calculated. Too forceful and the piece would shatter. Too gentle and nothing would happen. The angle had to be exact. The point of impact precisely chosen. It was geometry and physics executed entirely through intuition and muscle memory. Near her, your brother works on a different problem entirely. He has a piece of antler from that deer killed 3 days ago, and he's slowly, patiently carving it into a spear point. This is different from stonework. Antler is organic, flexible, capable of absorbing impacts that would shatter stone. But it's also harder to shape, requiring different tools and different techniques. He uses a stone burin, a chisel-like tool, to scrape and carve the antler. The work is tedious, producing a constant soft scraping sound. Thin curls of antler fall away with each stroke, accumulating in a small pile at his feet. This point will be different from the stone-tipped spears most hunters use. Lighter, more flexible, it can be thrown farther and is less likely to break on impact. But it takes hours to make, and antler is only available when someone successfully hunts deer or similar animals. Stone is everywhere. Antler is precious. What's striking about all this activity is the specialization. Not everyone was good at everything. Your aunt has spent decades mastering stonework and is genuinely expert at it. Your brother excels at antler and bone carving but is merely adequate at knapping. This isn't quite a market economy, but it's close. A recognition that different people have different talents and that the group benefits when people specialize. If you imagine early humans as exhausted, half-starved figures trudging endlessly across the landscape, constantly hunting, constantly gathering, constantly on the brink of collapse, you're not alone. That image has been drilled into us for decades. Life before civilization, we're told, was nasty, brutish, and short. A constant struggle for survival with no time for anything except work. But when anthropologists started living with modern hunter-gatherer societies and actually counting how they spent their time, a very different picture emerged. On average, adults in many foraging societies only spend about 4 to 6 hours a day on what we would call work. Finding food, preparing it, maintaining tools, basic camp upkeep. The rest of the day isn't filled with frantic scrambling. It's filled with nothing in particular. Resting, talking, playing, making music, grooming, staring into the distance, simply existing. So what did people actually do with all those hours? A lot of it would look surprisingly familiar and strangely slow. You rest. That might mean lying on your side under a patch of shade, half listening to the chatter of your relatives. It might mean sitting near the fire, absently turning a smooth pebble in your fingers, watching the smoke drift upward in twisting ribbons. When the body is your only real tool, preserving it is part of survival. Resting isn't laziness. It's maintenance. You socialize. Conversation in a small band of 20 or 30 people isn't optional background noise. It's the web that holds the group together. Every talk about who saw which herd of animals, who found a new stand of tubers, who argued with whom last night, these aren't just idle gossip. They're information-sharing systems, conflict management strategies, emotional first aid. You play with children. You let them climb over you like a living jungle gym. You show them how to throw little sticks at a target or how to gently handle a piece of stone without cutting themselves. 4 long stretches of the day, there is no urgent agenda, no tight schedule, no alarm clock dragging you from one task to the next. The pace of life is often dictated by the slow cycles of the sun, the seasons, and the movements of animals, not by the minute hand on a dial. And then somewhere in all that unscheduled time, something else begins to happen. Humans start to invent fun. Archaeologists have found small objects at prehistoric sites that don't fit neatly into any category of tool or weapon. Tiny carved animals made of bone or antler. Smooth-shaped pieces of stone drilled through the center like early spinning tops. Little figurines of people, sometimes exaggerated in strange ways. To a hungry adult crouching over a fire, these might not do much. But to a child, they're toys. There are hints of games for adults too. Certain small stones and bones found together in patterns that suggest dice or counters. Etched lines on flat rock surfaces that might have been game boards. Places where pieces were moved back and forth in quiet competitions that passed the time and strengthened social bonds. We don't know the rules they used or the stakes they played for, but the impulse is clear. When immediate needs are met, human minds look for patterns, challenges, little puzzles to solve. By late afternoon, the light begins changing. Shadows stretch longer, colors drain from the landscape, and the temperature drops faster than you'd expect. For ancient people, this isn't just a pretty sunset. It's a signal, a quiet alarm telling everyone, whatever you still need to do, finish it now. So your ancestors begin to contract their world, pulling it inward, drawing activity toward the same thing that has defined evening for humans for at least hundreds of thousands of years: fire. As the sun sinks, people drift back toward camp, toward that flickering center. Gatherers return with armloads of wood, bundles of plants, maybe a few surprise finds. Hunters straggle in later, sometimes triumphant with meat, sometimes empty-handed and silent. The noise level shifts. Daytime work is all scraping, chopping, calling out across distances. Evening is more contained. You hear the crackle of wood, the soft thud of someone hammering a last flake off a stone tool, the muted murmur of voices as people settle into the glow. While hands are busy, mouths are too. Fireside conversations are where human social life thickens. During the day, communication is often practical and shouted across distance. At night, the volume drops. The content changes. People debrief the day. A hunter quietly explains how the antelope bolted faster than expected. A gatherer laughs about the time they tipped over a whole basket of berries. Someone brings up a minor conflict from earlier, a harsh word, a broken tool, and the group smooths it over while chewing because carrying that tension into tomorrow could be dangerous. And then there are the stories. Once stomachs are full and the sharp edge of hunger is gone, the tone changes again. Someone might start with a familiar tale about the time an ancestor killed a monstrous lion, or when the river rose so high it carried away half the camp. These stories aren't mere entertainment. They're memory storage. In a world without writing, stories carry maps. Which valley has the bitter-tasting roots that are safe to eat only if boiled twice? Which rocky outcrop hides flints suitable for blades? Where the dangerous spirits, or in practical terms, sudden storms and flash floods, like to dwell. Above them is the same sky you see now if you step away from city lights. A sky so full of stars that it looks almost crowded, streaked occasionally with the ghostly band of the Milky Way, pierced by the sudden scratch of a meteor. Long before constellations had names we recognize, people were probably tracing shapes with their fingers, connecting stars into animals, ancestors' paths. So after all of this, what did early humans actually do all day? They worked. They walked miles to find roots and berries. They hauled meat back to camp. They shaped stone until their hands ached. They mended. They fed children. They watched the fire. They kept an eye out for teeth and claws glowing at the edge of the dark. But that wasn't all they did. They also sat. They stared into the flames and did nothing at all. They watched clouds drift over hills and lines of migrating animals pass along the horizon. They told stories so slowly that a single tale might last several evenings. They played, not just the children but the adults too. They sang. They traced patterns on cave walls and on their own skin. They rested. Their lives were hard, but not in the way we often imagine. Not a non-stop scramble from dawn to dusk, but pulses of effort and long stretches of low, quiet time. A few hours of intense work, then a lot of simply being together, moving with the seasons, moving with the light. That balance is the part we tend to forget. Because here we are with machines that do our grinding and lifting, with lights that turn night into day, with more information in our pockets than any hunter-gatherer could have imagined. And yet somehow many of us end up with less true leisure than they had. Less unstructured time, fewer evenings where we simply sit and watch the world without checking a clock. The irony is deep. We've built tools to free our time and then filled that time back up with noise. When we look back at their days, at the walking, the watching, the talking, the work broken up by laughter and silence, what we see is not a lost world we can never touch again. We see a template, a reminder that a good human day has a certain rhythm. Effort and ease, noise and quiet, togetherness and a little solitude. As you rest here now, you're already doing something profoundly ancient. You're letting the day end. You're stepping away from the hunt of emails and notifications and back toward the fire. For now, you don't need to do anything at all. Just imagine this. The fire in your ancestors' camp has burned down to deep, steady coals. Most of the group is already asleep, curled under furs, breath slow and even. Someone adds one last piece of wood, more out of habit than necessity. Above them, above you, the same moon drifts across the sky. The same constellations look down, slightly shifted by time, but still recognizably themselves. 35,000 years ago, a child blinked up at those stars, fighting sleep for one more story. Someone reached over, smoothed their hair, promised that the hunt could wait until morning. Tonight you share that same human need, to stop, to be safe, to let the mind loosen its grip on the day. The hunt can wait until morning. The world can wait until morning. For now you can rest under the same ancient sky. Where did you watch this video from? If this video enlightened you and inspired you, like the video, share and subscribe as we expose and uncover more of what textbooks skipped.